Hi, it's Alicia from the Pretty Brown Eyed Reader. Today I am coming with a video to share the selections that my book club is reading for the year for 2017. One of the reasons I wanted to share our reading list for the year is because of my video that I posted recently called Say What. If you get a chance, please check it out. It's some very interesting discussion about some negative things that are sometimes said about black writers. But to show the depth of black writers, especially African American writers, I want to share what my book club reads. And I coordinate an African American authors book club at my local library. And so we read all types of things. And so I just want to share our selections for this year. And also just some cool things like maybe how we discussed it, or just different things about each book selection. So in January, we started the year off reading Driving the King by Ravi Howard. And this is a historical fiction book in which he tells the story of Nat King Cole's driver. Mr. Howard, he is an assistant professor at Florida State University, and he's also an award winner. He won the Ernest Gaines Award for Literary Excellence. So he knows what he's doing. And he wrote this fictional account, but he didn't use all the facts. So in our discussion, that really kept coming up. Why didn't he use the actual facts of the case and facts of who Nat King Cole was, as well as what was happening in Alabama and the South at the time? But it was an enjoyable read. We had a lot of good discussion, and the way that we discussed this book was I had everyone to bring in questions, and then we balled the questions up and did a snowball fight. And so whichever question snowballs landed near you, you answered those questions, and we just went around the room. And so that was different because you never knew what was you were unballing, and so it just was a very lively discussion. In February, we read Long Division by Kiese Laymon. And Mr. Laymon, he is a professor of English and creative writing at the University of Mississippi. And he's a fairly young guy too. And the reason we read his book was because he was actually coming to town to do a writing workshop and to have a reading of his books. His style is usually called Southern hip hop literature. And when you read it, it kind of, if you're very familiar with like Outkast, the way he writes puts you in the rhythm of like an Outkast song to me. So I enjoyed his writing. I just didn't particularly care for this book, and the reason I didn't was because it's time travel. I have a problem with time travel. But when he was in, and he time traveled between 3 different eras in this book, and when he just stuck with one era and just let the rhythm of the words flow, oh, I love that. But the hopping, I don't really do well with time travel. So the younger members of the book club really enjoyed his book and writing. The older generation did not. But once we started discussing it, they began to see his creative style. Now, when he actually came to town a week after we met for the book club, and several members of the book club went to go see him. And they were the only African Americans in the room. And he was very gracious, and he thanked us for attempting to read Long Division, and he suggested that we read his upcoming book called Heavy. So be on the lookout for a book called Heavy by Kiese Laymon. But I think he's going to be a great writer. Well, I think he is a great writer. It's just, don't do any more time travel. I just can't do the time travel. So for March, we read Gal by Ruthie Brown. And each year in March, I try and make sure to choose a female writer since it's National Women's History Month. And so that, we can celebrate women and the triumphs. Well, the book Gal is a memoir, and Ruthie Brown is a fictional name. It is a pseudonym for the author. So that was the majority of our conversation about this book. Was it appropriate for the author to use a pseudonym instead of her real name? Well, she goes through some horrific things in the book. So, and where she comes from is a very small town. So I can understand using a pseudonym. But it also kind of led to, can we really believe what she says? So that was the gist of our discussion on that book. So April is, as anybody that probably watches my channel knows, is National Poetry Month, and it's one of my favorite months. So this year we were reading Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. Surprisingly, this was our most DNF book of the whole year. And I was a little shocked because even I DNF'd it. I didn't finish it. And I'm sure you've seen on BookTube the book discussed quite often. So it was a little shock to me that nobody finished it. Even the person that suggested it, she had already read it and she didn't even reread it. So I'm not even sure why. I don't think we ever could come up with a concrete reason why nobody finished the book. But it was just interesting that it's so popular on BookTube, but nobody in my book club finished it. But we all agreed in the course of the discussion of what we did read that it was an important book for younger people to read. So in May, we read a book called The Wedding Gift by Marlen Suyapa Bodden. And the author is an attorney in New York, and she works with human trafficking, and she's an expert on historical slavery. So she wrote this book about a slave girl who was given to her white biological sister as a wedding gift. So several members of the book club voiced that they do not like reading slave narratives. And the course of our discussion led to the fact that no one should ever become comfortable reading a slave narrative anyway. But her writing style was very easy, and most of the book club was able to read her book in like one setting. I thought the writing was good and it flowed very easy. My problem with the book is it just didn't say anything new. And many of the instances in the book, I think people would have got killed if it was really true. But as far as writing, if you can tolerate slave narratives, I think it's a great book. But just as far as storytelling, she's a good storyteller. I just don't think stuff would have happened. And like I say, if it was something different, and it probably didn't help that Underground was on at the same time, so I'm like so used to now the action-packed feel of the TV show Underground that this slave narrative felt like it was just I was like, no, let's go, what action. Not realizing, that's an action show. But anyway, that's our subject. So we break for the summer, so June, July, August, we don't meet. So when September comes back around, we'll be reading The Other Wes Moore by Wes Moore. And it is a non-fiction book in which the author, he examines the life of someone with the same name as him and what makes their trajectories in life different. So I'm looking forward to a very lively discussion on that. In October, we will actually read 2 books. We're going to read I Have Heard of a Land by Joyce Carol Thomas. She was a children's author who passed away last year, and she has beautifully illustrated books. And this book tells the story of African Americans who went to the Western frontier to settle. So we're going to read that. And we're also going to read March by John Lewis. And that's a graphic novel that many people on BookTube have read. And we're going to look at both authors' approaches to telling historical facts about African Americans. So I'm thinking this is going to be a great discussion. And lastly, in November, we will read the book The Same Kind of Different as Me, and it's by Ron Hall and Denver Moore. Ron Hall is a affluent white business owner, and Denver Moore is a black homeless man, and they co-authored this book to tell about their unlikely friendship. And the reason I chose this book for this month is it's going to be our 100th book selection. So we're going to have a celebration in which we're inviting all of the book clubs at the library and other book clubs in town to come celebrate. And so I wanted to show all different, but with all the same kind of different. And plus some of the most profound things that are said in this book are actually said by Denver, not by Ron. And so I wanted to show just because someone doesn't have the same education as you doesn't mean that they don't have something to say. But anyway, so I thought that this would be a great book to celebrate our 100 selection, as well as to get other book clubs to join in a conversation with us about African Americans in America. I hope that this was interesting to you. If you would like for me to share other years, please let me know. I'll be glad to do that. Thank you for watching and have a great day.